I have so much news right now, I can't fit it all in the same video. So this video is going to be specifically about KTM's 1290 Superduke R, years 2017, 2018, and 2019. Specifically, the triple clamp, how limiting the OEM triple clamp is, and the power performance triple clamp, and the world that can be opened up to you if you use a Superclamp instead, which is not available for a Gen 2. Or is it? Maybe it is now. So let's get into this right now. I'm GoGo for Superduke.com. Let's talk about the Superclamp for the Gen 2. Number one, first thing I want to share with you is the single most impactful change you can make to your motorcycle. What is it? You know I've already said this before. It's your trail. That's the most impactful change you can make to your bike. Let's say you bought the coolest exhaust on the internet for $3,000, and you put it on your bike and you ride down the road. It's going to be the same bike. It feels the same. Let's say you bought $5,000 billet aluminum wheels that you waited 8 months to get. You bolt it on your bike and you go ride down the road and it's the same bike. It feels exactly the same. Let's say you change your trail somehow, 2 millimeters. You go ahead, ride down the road. You get 50 yards. You're going to be like, this is a different bike. It's a totally different bike. What the hell? That's trail. Trail is huge. It's everything. It's everything. So when you have a Gen 2 1290 Superduke, you're kind of limited on how you can adjust your trail, right? Because that doesn't have a link system in the rear suspension like the Gen 3 and the Gen 4 do. So I make links that will increase or decrease your rear height, which changes your chassis attitude, and it's like less than $200, and you can feel your bike is very, very different. It also does increase swing arm angle. It also does have an effect on your progressive rate of your spring, which is all benefits. But the most impactful change that you feel from a sport link on a Gen 3 and a Gen 4 is the trail, is the result of the trail of changing the angle of your chassis. So it's huge. But if you have a Gen 2, you can't put a link in there. You can't put a sport link in there. All you can do is buy a shock with adjustable length. You know, that's a serious shock. It's a race shock that you can wind up the rear and make the shock longer or shorter. And that will increase the height of the rear, which puts an angle on your chassis, and then you get the reduced trail. There's another thing you can do if you're creative. You can change your gearing, because the rear axle is inside of an eccentric hub that is on Superduke.com. You can look at all the data sheet that I have for the Gen 3 and the Gen 4 on how changing the position of that rear axle, because it's on an eccentric, will also change the rear height of your bike. So you could theoretically, I don't have the Gen 2 mapped up. I probably should do that. But I got enough projects right now that I'm never going to make $1 from. So let me just get through this first, right? So by changing the position of that rear axle, you're also raising and lowering the rear of the bike. And the way the bike comes stock is at the lowest it can be, the lowest in the rear that it can be. And then if you got like a longer chain, I think it comes at a 112. If you got a 114 link chain, don't even change your sprockets. You'd have to turn the axle back more. And as soon as you start going back, you also go down. And when the axle goes down, the rear height goes up, because the axle is connected to the tire, which is touching the ground. So the axle is never going to get closer to the ground. It's directly connected. So the bike goes up and down above the axle. So if you want to adjust, you can change your trail that way. You can't change it a lot, a couple of millimeters, right? But you can make a difference. Well, it's worth a try, right? The only other way to do it is with adjustable offset triple clamps, which are trick as hell. You can get them for, R1s and Ducatis and very popular bikes, but nobody in their right mind would make one for a Superduke, because there's not that many of us out there. Remember I said nobody in their right mind. And then remember, I said, recently I had a head injury. My brain's damaged. So who's going to make it? You got it. I made it. So this is a Superclamp. Actually, this is a Superclamp, right? For a Gen 3 and a Gen 4 Superduke. This is a Superclamp for a Gen 2. So what does an adjustable offset triple clamp do? I don't think I've spent enough time educating people on this, because all I have to do is look at my own life and go back in time, and I'm like, I didn't know what adjustable offset triple clamps were 15 years ago. They sound cool, but I don't know what they did. Oh, they changed the offset? That's cool. I still didn't know what that meant. What did that mean? So here's how it works. Let me do this for you. I mean, we're learning things, right? So this is an insert. This is one of 7 inserts that fit this hole in the lower triple clamp. There's an equal sized insert that fits the upper triple clamp, but let's just show one side, right? So there's 7 different ones of these inserts that all have this hole in a different place inside of this oval. So when you change the placement of that hole, so the oval sits, well, actually, the oval sits like this, right? I made it so you can read the numbers, the offset that you have underneath, because that's where you view it from the bike, right? But so if the insert goes in like this, here it sits, your steering stem goes into that hole. See like that? Now, this is your offset. If you could draw a line through the middle of this fork and the middle of this fork, there will be a line going straight across, right? Then if you could draw another line parallel through the middle of this steering stem, the offset is the distance between those 2 parallel lines. And offset, the offset of your triple clamps has a huge impact on how your bike responds to you, how the bike feels, because your offset affects your trail. So you can have a motorcycle, right? I do with my fingers. You can have a motorcycle, right, that's sitting on its, on the pavement, on its wheels, and that's its attitude, right? The chassis, like if you drew a line through the whole chassis, that's about where it is. If you jacked up the rear, like this, now that's the attitude of the chassis, and it's like kind of aggressive and it's more leaning forward. When you put a sport link on a Superduke, you increase the rear, you make it a little more aggressive. When the bike is a little more aggressive like this, when the attitude is a little steeper, when you have less trail, the bike responds easier to you. It responds without fighting you. Okay, so like people rave about how the Tuono handles. People rave about how the KTM RC8C handles. Ducati's winning World Superbike and MotoGP, like they're just dominating everything. And their new Superbike, the street bike, the Panigale, whatever the hell it is, people love the way it handles. You know how much trail it has? 98 millimeters of trail. And the RC8C, 99 millimeters of trail. And the Tuono, like, I think it's 100 or 101. All the bikes that people are raving about the way they handle are all around 100. When I raced my Gen 2 Superduke, all the years that I raced it, the best version that I had it, the best setup that it had, before I sold that bike, I put it in the truck and I drove the truck up to Sacramento and had Jerry Piazza measure it with his digital beep, like it's 3-dimensional machine. And guess what the trail was? And so I said it in my Gen 2 setup video, it was 101 millimeters. Now, why did I land at 101? Because that was as far as I could go. I didn't have adjustable offset triple clamps. I had their back jacked like this, and where the position of the forks were, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have numbers to go by. I wasn't doing it that way. I was just going by feel. And I kept pushing the bike and adjusting things, and it felt better and better, and it was faster and faster. And where I ended up, the fastest, I could go around the outside of guys around the racetrack. Where I ended up was 101 millimeters of trail, which is way less than the bike had stock. So that's exciting. But what if you're riding a street bike? Like, I have people that emails me, oh, I don't really need a Superclamp because I'm not like racing the bike. I get it. I get that you think that way and you're communicating that, and it makes sense. But let me give you a little bit of thought on this subject, okay? When I race a bike, I'm full throttle down the straight, okay? Now here comes a left-hand turn. I'm gonna have to get this heavy-ass machine to lean on its side and turn 90 degrees. You're gonna take all this weight, all this force, all this mass, and get it to go that way without putting my foot on the ground. Like, when you want to move something, you put your foot on the ground and you move it like this, right? So I got to do all that, just balancing, leaning, and go. That's a lot of weight. That's a lot of force to get to move. So I'm going to have to fight to get that job done. Part of how I win that fight is I brake super hard. And I get the bike on its nose. What do you mean on its nose? Chassis attitude, right? So when I'm compressing the forks all the way down, I'm braking super, super hard. I got the chassis to have that attitude. And here, less trail. Like the more down the front is, the shorter your trail is. And the short, why does it feel like my chair's sinking? So the shorter your trail is, the easier the bike is to turn. So one of the things that I do, and I have to thank Jake Zemke for this, because he's the one who, like, I was always doing it, or kind of doing it, but Jake Zemke made me conscious of it. And that's a big thing in whatever you do. Like, there might be some things that you do naturally that you're not that conscious of. So when it gets to the time where you have to do it more, faster, or harder, or in order to do it better and more efficiently, it helps if you do it proactively. If you're conscious of what you're doing, it helps you make changes for the better. So Jake helped me become conscious of braking, getting the chassis attitude down where it's a good place to turn, and then starting to lean in while letting go of the brake and never letting the bike come up again. Like this, the way that I can go super fast nowadays is braking like this, get the bike to so it's at a place where it can turn the way I want it to, and then starting to turn while I start to let go of the brake, and then going into the turn without ever letting the front recover. Because when the front recovers, I lose that trail. Now I have a lot of trail now, and I'm down like this, I have a little bit of trail. So what about you riding on the street? Like you just said, well, I don't need that stuff. I'm not racing a bike. Well, here's why it's so helpful to have adjustable offset triple clamps on a Superduke street bike, okay? Let's say you're riding on the mountain roads and you're just going right and you're going left and here's the trees and here's my buddy and you're like, let's go to Alice's restaurant. Okay, you're not going into turns so hard braking like this. So you're not getting the benefit of manipulating your chassis attitude. You have to turn however the bike is sitting. So really, on a street bike, you need trail numbers more than I do on a racetrack. It's the opposite of what many people assume. Like, well, I'm not racing, I don't need triple clamps. If you're not racing, you definitely need triple clamps, right? Because you have to ride the bike with the trail that it has right off the showroom floor. Or do you? So now we're in a situation where we can, where did all this stuff go? So with our insert, adjustable offset insert, we can change where the steering stem is relative to where the forks are, and that's changing our trail. The bike doesn't have to go down. No more do we have to have the chassis on this angle, or the rear of the bike so high. So if that was the only way to adjust your trail, people with shorter legs could never ride a bike with less trail because you could never reach the floor. So now, people with shorter legs, you can change the trail just by changing your offset. So when you do that, you can even look at this offset closely. This offset says on it +2 and OEM. So if you put this up, I'll put it in upside down. If you put it in like this, okay, plus means like I made plus, where it's like increased performance. So +2 is adding 2 millimeters to your offset, which it's opposite, reduces your trail 2 millimeters. That's why I make a plus, because it's like performance, like you added performance. You just made your performance of your bike, the reactions, to be beneficial, like it's a positive 2 millimeters. But if you take this out and flip it over and put it back in, you just change the location of that hole. So there's like one insert. I think the +1 insert, the hole is exactly in the middle of the oval. So it doesn't matter. You put that in like this or like this, it's only has one offset because that's the way I designed it to be. So then there's the +2, +3, +4, +5. There's like 7 inserts, and most of the inserts have 2 positions. You just rotate it around. So that's really, really cool and really advanced. And people with a Gen2 Superduke really wanted, some people that understood what adjustable offset triple clamps do, really wanted me to make super clamps for the earlier bikes, for the Gen2. So I did an agreement out online to say, if 10 people sign up, I'll make them. And only like 4 people signed up, 5 people signed up. And because I'm an extra idiot, I'm not just an idiot, I'm like an extra idiot. I created a sign-up sheet for people with the Gen 1 or Gen 2 triple clamps. Like if anyone from 2014 to 2019, if you want a super clamp, I'll make one for you. Okay, so check this out. Look how different. This is a triple clamp for a Gen 2. What is this hole? What is this hole? What the hell is that? And these brackets. This does not exist. This is the Gen 3 and 4. There's no hole in the middle. What's the hole? Now, if you go to, this is the Gen 1 triple clamp. There's no hole. Where's the hole? For some reason, KTM only in the 2017 to the 2019 made the brake line goes from your brake lever to here and bolts in to the triple clamp. Fluid goes through the triple clamp, and then the banjo bolt down here, there's 2 of them. One goes to one caliper, one goes to the other caliper. So the triple clamps are like an integral part of your brakes, of your brake lines, which is really, So I got, well, if 10 people sign up for the Gen 1 and Gen 2, I'll make them. What a moron, because I have to make completely different super clamps for the first generation and then for the second generation. So I'm an idiot, but I also have some integrity and honor, and it was right for you to trust me because it was a pretty big leap of faith, and I both respect you for it and appreciate you for it. And that's why I dedicated myself to make it happen. And here it has happened. So here is the Gen 2 Super Clamp. Here is the brake lines. I made this little piece here. So you put your brake line on, and when you tighten the banjo bolt, the shoulder of the bolt hits this little ledge, and this will hold it just like the OEM one has that little, this little tiny, has that little curve right there to keep the banjo from spinning. So banjo from spinning right here. Then if you also look, the Gen 2 has these brackets here that stick up for the headlight. right? The headlight kind of leans like this. There's these pins that go in here and help hold it, and then the headlight bolts 1, 2, 3 places up there. So what I did for the solution here, is if you look at the triple clamp this way, if you think of like this, have to be machined out of a big hunk of aluminum. So if it's just the triple clamp, the hunk of aluminum is only this big, and it's 7075 T6 aluminum, so it's expensive aluminum, strong. So this is the size, but as soon as you put these things here, like, oh boy, look how much bigger the block of aluminum has to be. And then you gotta like mill all this material away, like all that material is just for that. So instead of doing it that way, I designed these little brackets that we'll do it in 2 pieces. So there's a hole and there's a pin. You put the pin in the hole like that, and then there's a bolt. We just tighten the bolt. And now here's our little bracket for the headlight. Same thing on the other side. See the little pin and the hole? These are 3D printed. Don't worry, the real part is not 3D printed. By the way, if you design things and you make prototypes and things, you really should have 3D printed, because I used to have to, like when I made the original Superclamp, I had to pay $1,200 to get one lower and upper made, one. And it didn't really work that great. I had to make a lot of changes to the design that David was so kind to help with me to make it fit the Superduke, that I had to do that 2 times. And then I started making them out of wood myself. I probably made 30 Superclamps before I actually made one to sell. So now I can 3D print them and test fit them and things. So I have test fit this on a Gen2 Superduke, which Taco owns at Kawamoto. He's been helping me with some mechanical stuff and fixing my race bike, the Gen3. So this has been on his bike and it works. But what about the upper? The upper is tricky. I really wanted to, and I emailed you guys, I really wanted to find a way to be able to use the Gen 3 lower, the Gen 3 and Gen 4, like modify it somehow, so that you would have a super clamp for your Gen 2 that maybe when you sold the bike, you could then take your triple clamp with you if you move up to a Gen 3 or Gen 4. Couldn't do it. It's too different. The brake line thing broke my balls. So I would like to try to do the same thing with the upper, at least, right? So if you ever moved up, the idea was you could call me and be like, hey, I just need a lower for a Gen 3 because I'm moving up from a Gen 2 to Gen 3. And I'll just sell you a lower. So how am I going to do this? The Gen 2 headlight bucket, it's like a black plastic, kind of like a dish or a bucket thing, that has all the wires and everything inside of it. And then the headlight goes in front of that. You don't see the wires and all the ugly stuff. But that little bucket thing goes onto the bottom of the triple clamp with these 2 little pins, and it works perfectly with these, same thing. And then it goes up here and it bolts. Look at this. This is the Gen 3. Already had a hole there. So the hole hasn't changed. It's perfect. It works perfectly. So one bolt goes there. But that headlight bucket also then has a hole here and a hole here. How the hell do we do that? It took me forever. At first I designed this. So if you look under here, if you have a Gen 3, there's inserts that screw into here with a special accommodation for the Gen 3 headlight thing. If you have a Gen 4, you take off this insert, you put a different insert, then it works with the Gen 4 headlight thing. Great, same triple clamp, 2 bikes. Well, I designed this, okay? So my idea was put this in here like this, and now we have a place for the 2 holes. Great. Only the headlight bucket has these vertical slats, and it hit and interfered here and it didn't work. It was a disaster. So, driving in hours and hours and hours, I finally came up with a solution that does work. This. Just like the Gen 3 and the Gen 4 have the inserts that screw into this, I made this bracket, which is a very special shape, and it goes in to this little hole. See, there's like an extrusion right here, so it fits right into there perfectly, tight, not going anywhere. Obviously, you're gonna bolt it too, so here's the bolt, right? So you just bolt it into the same hole that the Gen 3 and the Gen 4 uses. Now it's in. There you go. There's one of the buck teeth that have to, and then here's the other one. So let's say I put the other one in real quick. This is cool. There you go. Now look at the difference. See that? It's perfect. The holes line up perfectly, and it's stronger than an ox. These brackets are 3D printed, but they're now it's like 1 hour until I actually say go to the machinist to make these. And there you go. The Gen 2 Superclamp is going to work. There's one last little detail that's just a pain in my ass. It's not a problem. It's just a pain in my ass. So what that is remember I talked about the top and the bottom have inserts, right? So this is the insert for the top. Getting down. It's got to be kind of snug fit. So that's good. So there you go. And this triple clamp is in the OEM position. So OEM forward. Great. Then you so steering stand would come up here like this, and then on the Gen 3 and the Gen 4, which is what this is designed to work with, you use the OEM bolt. It's kind of a fat bolt with an Allen head socket inside of it, and that screws in, and there's a little washer, and what it does is when you screw, it goes burp, 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 burp. It pushes the top triple down so that the bearings seat just right? And then everything's kind of snug, because if this was up here, right, then the bearings would be bonk, 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 bonk. So down, 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 down until you just get the right amount of tension on that bearing. And then you tighten this pinch bolt. And now the nut got you torqued to the right place, and then the pinch bolt holds it there forever. That's how this works. You know what the problem is? Pain in my ass. On your Gen 2, that's what your bolt looks like. It's huge. It doesn't screw into there. It's too big. So if you have a Gen 2 and you're buying a super clamp for the Gen 2, we have to buy one more thing. And please don't break my balls, because it wasn't my fault. Understand that not only am I not making $1 on these, I will never earn the money back that I've put into this project. Never. So don't make me buy the bolts too, please. So we need the Gen 3 and Gen 4 bolt, just the top bolt and the washer to put in. No big thing, right? But it is a big thing. It is a pain in the ass. You know why? Because in the United States of America right now, which I don't know, maybe Europe is the same, there are none in stock. So I have to make that bolt for everybody. And there's a little dust cap that goes underneath this stuff. There's these stupid little trivial things that are not going to stop this project. And I'm not even going to add any time to it, because it's going to take me like 3 hours to draw that bolt. You know, in reality, it's going to be a day. But whatever. I'm going to draw the bolt and have it made so that you'll be able to use the super clamp for your Gen 2 Superduke that you paid for like 4 months ago. I'd say 2 weeks. I probably should say 3 weeks because it's going to take them a week to machine it, and then I have to polish it. I over there, I polish all of the triple clamps and the super shorts and the support links, everything. I polish them all by hand because I have found that they just look better. The anodizing just looks better. And, I am in this project to not make a profit. I just really want to make pretty things. That's all the goal is. So it's going to take me a couple of days to do all the polishing. And then I'm going to drive it down to San Jose and they're going to do the anodizing. And they I just texted them. They said they have room. They don't have to wait all this extra time. So that's probably going to be a week. So let's say less than 3 weeks, you're going to have the Superclamps for the Gen 2. And I'm going to be able to breathe. And if you have a Gen 1, I'm already working on that. And you know what? It's not going to be half as hard as the Gen 2 was. I definitely started with the hard one and kicked its ass. So there you go. You're about to have a brand new KTM 1290 Superduke R that you thought was an old bike. It's about to be a brand new bike. Now go for superduke.com. The Gen 1 is next.